in here to understand
As long as I believe
water that you don't normally think of.
Plants like this are pulling out phosphorus from billions of gallons of water, helping to make sure what flows south is safe to drink and healthy enough to feed this enormous.
So, guys, I'm gonna have to.
63,000 acres of man-made.
I'm gonna have to explain a bit. Okay? Let me explain this to you guys. Today it's May the 25th, 2024. May the 25th, 2024.
No one had built constructed
And
wetlands
it's
of this size.
Saturday. It's 6:25 a.m. Eastern. I'm in Orlando, Florida. It's actually 6:24 a.m. Eastern time. EST. Okay. So it's quite early in the morning. It's quite early in the morning, but let me explain this to you guys. I am literally the biological and genetic father of Patricia Robert Fitzhugh's first two kids. Okay? I mess with my teeth enough. I have a natural, gap in my teeth, but I did straighten my teeth out at one point, and then I was advised that, it ought to remain crooked for security reasons, because there are lookalikes out here the FBI are searching for to try to get in the way of you being a happy man, Shawn. So you just have to be very careful. And I understood that from the get-go. Okay? And from that point, moving forward. So I guess that was the get-go on that particular issue. But anyway, so the first two kids of Patricia Roberts, the boy and the girl, those are my kids. Okay? And the three kids of Rashida Williams, those are my three kids, my biological and genetic children. I promise you. That's a fact. Okay? That's just not a joke at all. My kids, they variate in phenotype. They really do. And it's not just a point to be made. But I just want you guys to understand that we need to trust. We need to trust that DNA is real. This is what was going on with the FBI. They found out that whenever they charged black men with rape falsely or arbitrarily or negligently, and they found out that the DNA match did not match, but because they were so lazy, so racist, so ill-motivated, at times they would alter the DNA remains and state that DNA is not scientifically confirmed as viable by the federal government of the United States unanimously, this and that. And it has become part of the culture of the federal government of the United States and the FBI when it comes to law enforcement. And now it has gotten to this particular issue, my issue, of folks trying to take away my family from me, okay? So, but in general, DNA can be trusted. Honest DNA can be trusted. Okay? We created DNA from, speaking of myself, God, and the Celestials, the most ancient of ancients, a blueprint. DNA was created from the very beginning of time. Well, yeah, for the most part, from the very beginning of time. And the blueprint I was given regarding DNA, I peculiarized it enough to make sure that my universe, the one that I created, was slightly peculiar, slightly variated from every other universe, just slightly. But DNA itself is firm, it's based on reality, based on physics, science, chemical realities, and everything else that has to do with genetic information. Okay? I am really Jesus Christ. I am really God. I know what I'm speaking about at all times. Okay? And when I sound confused or when I sound ambiguous, it is either to make a point, is to have you think, or is to have you not think until it's time for you to think for security purposes. Okay? So I'm not arrogant or anything like that. I'm telling you guys, we are going to get through what we are going to get through, us as Americans and us here on Earth. And I'm not going to have to speak about elsewhere other than here on Earth. All right? So what's going to transpire over the next 2 years? Earth is going to get through it. This is the last world war, the last global war which is underway. There's no need to panic. There's just no need to panic, and there's no need to overreact and get too overzealous and say, no, we are just too proud of New York as New Yorkers, and I'm pretty sure the Moscowans are quite proud, and they just don't want to go through that, and they just don't want to learn any lesson that they don't need to learn based on what they were raised on believing. The world has to remain diverse, and people need to be conflicted as much as possible. The world needs to be diverse, you know. This first dimension, this planet ought to be diverse, but it has to be conflict resolved, conflict resolved. You know, so that's the universalization of political, social, and economic standard. You know, so even though we are going to remain variated or within a spectrum, diverse as human beings, as humanity, race to race, ethnicity to ethnicity, cultural tradition to cultural tradition, and this and this and that, we ought to adhere to social liberalism as a global standard, to the end of nuclear warfare as a global standard, the end of continental military buildup, or military buildup in general, as a universal standard. We need to believe in humanism and human development as a universal standard. All of this has to occur, and will only occur under a world government that none of the governments have signed up for, and a government that has to appear to have been induced by the human journey, by the human narrative, naturally, within a natural evolution. So that when our kids look back into the history books, they're going to say, well, the world government, it was created in response to the worst sort of situation in the world, Armageddon, the last world war, global war. They're not going to say Armageddon. They might not know that. Okay, but this is what they're going to say. Okay, so everything that occurs, this is what I want you guys to know about my job. Everything that occurs within the evolution of humanity, the human journey, the evolution toward human singularity, has to appear to have occurred within a natural course. Cause and reaction, or cause and effect. You know? The only way a viable world government can be created, as I created the United Nations as Du Bois, was in response to a horrible situation, which was rectified by a solid, viable, unbreachable United Nations, instead of the weak League of Nations, which served as the predecessor. Okay? So you guys are going to argue. That's just how things work. That's just how things work. Why? Guys, I'm a bit hoarse right now, okay? I was speaking all night long, and I woke up in the morning having to send communications to my dad, so my voice is kind of hoarse. But this is why. If we were just to create, concepts and have them, established or materialize into reality, into part of our daily functions and operations as a human civilization or as modern nation states, they would easily be dissolved. They would not respond to reality in the long term. They would not respond to fundamental issues. They would not respond to issues which are transpirational, from one paradigm to the next paradigm. They would not serve as long term. The world would be chaotic. The world would evolve to become nonsensical. The values would variate so much that conflict would be numerous and would be unending. Okay? So the human journey and the human narrative requires that events take place that forced us to sit at the table and think deeper than we've ever thought before. That's what the human journey is going to provide to our children. That's what history is going to provide to our children when they read the books. history books. When they read history books, this is what they're going to say. This is what they're going to conclude. They're going to conclude that the world war, the last world war, the global war in 2024 to 2026, forced our parents and our grandparents to get together in the United Nations and possibly within continental schemes and this and this and that. And we figured out how to create a world government which did not offend the world, which did not get in the way of sovereignty, nation-state sovereignty, or even continental sovereignty, just to prove that nation-state sovereignty actually makes sense to serve as a buffer zone. That's how deep our parents and grandparents went in making sure that the world government would be completely responsive to reality, completely responsive to never allowing a world war to ever occur again, completely responsive to prohibiting continental military buildup and military buildup in general. Okay? So guys, I don't need to be offensive at all, okay? So I went from speaking on DNA to speaking on the global war and history books and how our children are going to interpret what happened in history and why we work within a human narrative, a narrative that I've already written out, and this and this and that. I don't want you guys sending me emails of random concepts, you know? I don't mind you guys, random concepts. I want you guys to think, think in advance, and I want you guys to think in response. I need you guys to take your time. Those of you guys who are going to communicate with me, I need you guys to take your time and respond to what I'm telling you that we are going to endure and what we've endured up to this point. I don't want just abstract theories, and I haven't incorporated anything that anyone have sent me into anything that I've authored and provided to the Central Intelligence Agency and INTERPOL, what I've published online. And I'm not lying at all when I say that. What I've published on the website, or what I've published on the web in general, the internet, okay? But at this particular point, I've written everything that I've needed to write on when it comes to the fundamental structure of the world government that we are going to create, the fundamental structure, the fundamental branches, departments, organs. They are all organs for the most part, but the fundamental structure, philosophy, policies, and tenets of a world government of the new paradigm, including continental unions and regional unions here and there. Okay? So I'm going to have to articulate this again so that no one actually gets confused to what I'm saying. I have gotten to the point at this particular, meaning May 25th, 2024, to saying, okay, it's okay for you guys now to communicate with me and send in abstract or concrete concepts so that I can review and say, well, we might be able to do this within the Eastern Caribbean. We might be able to do this within the Caribbean community. We might be able to do this in the ASEAN. We might be able to create some sort of, peculiar community council in Australia. And this, and having read what I've written, what I've authored and presented to you guys. Okay? I'm okay with you guys but I want you guys to steer far away from too abstract, as I've said. Okay. Hold on. I want you guys to steer away from too abstract. And I'm not speaking to high school kids or even college kids. I'm speaking of to doctoral students and professionals, seasoned professionals included, obviously. That's who I would actually cater to. Okay, but I do anticipate that, I did anticipate from the very get-go that the young folks would want to get involved in what's going on. And in the paradigm shift, they would want to get involved in preparing for the world government and preparing immediately for the EAA and toward a Union of the Americas within the global scheme. I anticipated that. So I'm okay with you guys sending in, ideas and concepts and this to my email address or to my colleagues or my associates. Okay? Not too abstract, but if you do send in abstract stuff, I do understand. I'm not going to say it's nonsensical. I'm not going to say anything outrageous or derogatory, but I want you guys to take your time and think deeply. Okay? So we are getting to the point of we are going to be the most globalist nation in the world, the United States of America. And that's the only way we're going to be allowed by the rest of the world without conflict to manage the United Nations world government. And the whole world for, I'm pretty sure, colloquially, popularly, psychologically, emotionally, perceive the United States as managing the world. So it's not some sort of obscure, perspective or perception. This is real. But nominally and by treaty, the United States government, via the Central Intelligence Agency and INTERPOL here in the United States, will be able to manage the United Nations world government in secret, but certainly not obstructive of anything having to do with law, policy, human rights, constitutional authenticity, and stuff of that nature, okay? We are going to be contracted by the United Nations now and as world government to lead the management of the United Nations world government. That's the reality. The United States, specifically the Central Intelligence Agency. Okay? So take it serious, okay, guys? Take globalism seriously. If America is going to lead the world into kingdom come, and that's its job, I created the United States of America. As Columbus, I named America America. It essentially was a coded word, a miracle. That's what it always meant. There was no Americo Vespucci. That was just an alias of mine as Christopher Columbus. I did a lot of stuff in history to hide the dates and so forth, okay, in the history books. All right? There was no Amerigo Vespucci who named America America. That was me. Christopher Columbus, Jesus Christ. Christopher Columbus. That was me. Okay? It's a miracle, the United States of America. A miracle, how we purported discovering it, what people expected. They did not expect us to find a new continent. When I said I'm going to go around the world and find new lands, Asian lands and Indian lands and so forth, because it was top secret. I could not reveal to these folks that yes, I'm going after America, and I'm gonna affirm that I did get to America as Leif Erikson. That's known to my inner circle that I'm actually going to America, but to the rest of Europe, the rest of Europe was actually being briefed and told that Jesus Christ is here. His current name is Christopher Columbus, and he's going to find a way for Europe to be able to lead the economic development of Europe and the globalism that we've predicted. We've been walking in and out of Asia and stuff via portals with Jesus Christ and this and this and that. And we can see that the Chinese are keeping up, or they're about to surpass us. And Jesus Christ is here to say that Europe needs to lead for another few centuries because our values are a bit more advanced and progressive than China and this and that. So we had to prove that we did the hard work of gaining, the economic stewardship. And that, because China did not have the ability to actually get to India, even though we had the ability to get to China and India, even though India was a bit more aggressive. So whenever we did enter the portal, they would have us run back into the portal. They were quite aggressive and tribal. The Chinese were accustomed of us walking into China via some of the portals. So they anticipated it. They were not over aggressive, and we were quite diplomatic. I was not too diplomatic with India for a reason, because of the human narrative that I wrote out. I just lied to everyone, white lied to everyone, that they are just too aggressive. They're just not ready for this. I did not need them to know that we were actually going to America, a new continent, a continent which was always there, but new to you guys, okay? So that's the only reason I allowed the Indians to act crazy. They were just acting crazy. They were not serious. Okay, we had agents show up there from heaven and say, just scare them back into the portals. They don't need to end up in India yet. Okay, but anyway, I was Christopher Columbus, and I got to America, and and I made sure to land in the Bahamas. And we saw the coast of Florida. I said we are going to steer far away from the mainland. I did not want, some of my soldiers, some of my shipmates to know that we were actually on a new continent. So we said that, the island folks are they're most of the West Indians. We must have gone to the other side of India, and we must be, these must be islands on the west side of India because they seem different. The Chinese don't recollect seeing these things based on the maps that we do have. So this must be on the west of India. We're going to call it the West Indies. Okay, so we did stop in the Bahamas. I promise you, they weren't too sure of where they were until I briefed them afterward, until they passed the test, and they deserved to know what the hell I was talking about because they kept getting confused. Well, we named it the West Indies. So essentially West Indies. And but I knew we were not in India, so I said Indies instead of saying West India, obviously. And they were islands, so it made sense. So we stopped in the Bahamas. We went all throughout the Caribbean, the islands. We stopped on the coast of South America, so therefore they figured out that this must be a new continent, and that's when I started briefing them. Okay. As Leif Erikson, we actually got to New York area, Connecticut, Massachusetts. We went onto the land. We got to Canada, Nova Scotia, all of that. So there was no need for me to actually get onto the mainland of North America as Christopher Columbus. I had no need to do so. Okay? So yes, America means a miracle. And yes, the Caribbean, we focused on the Caribbean. We created Santo Domingo. It was a small town back then. When we created it, it was just a small town. We created Saint Dominique, or Saint Domingo, or Saint Domingue. Essentially, that was the beginning of Haiti. Santo Domingo was the beginning of a Dominican Republic. Hispaniola just meant small Spain, or Spain Island, or Little Spain. So essentially, that's what it meant. I was contracted with Spain. I was a Venetian. I was Italian. I prepared to be Christopher Columbus ever since I was Leonardo da Vinci. I knew I was going to be Christopher Columbus. I wrote Machiavelli. I was Machiavelli. I was just joking around. It was just national security. I was not joking around. It was national security. But I told them, choose the Bible or you choose this. This is the test. You apply my work is Machiavelli the right way, or you apply the wrong way and you get punished. You guys are contesting the Bible. You guys are asking for something that makes sense. I'm going to provide this to you guys. Now, this is a test. I'm telling you, that's how it works at times. Okay? So even though I was not outrageously evil, I was not evil at all in what I wrote as Machiavelli. But I do understand that people interpreted national security the wrong sort of way. That was always the intent. I did anticipate it. I made sure that it wasn't evil, but I made sure that it was a test. It allowed folks to test their own conscience, and with us in heaven watching to see if they would actually bite my work as Machiavelli instead of my work as God, as clearly Jesus Christ. They wanted to kill me for begging them to take ethics seriously without begging them to go to church every Sunday. They could not find a way to say, we don't want to go to church, we don't want to give tithes, we don't want to we don't want to give gifts on Christmas. We don't want to be friendly to our neighbors and to the other races and ethnicities. We just don't want to have to deal with that. We are sick and tired of Jesus Christ telling us that we need to be diplomatic. Okay, so everything is a test of conscience. Everything is. Okay? But anyway, I prepared to be Christopher Columbus ever since. I prepared definitively ever since my days as Leonardo da Vinci. And I saw into the future. I said, I'm going to be proficient in writing what I write as Machiavelli, and then I'm going to purport to run away to Western Europe to get a contract, and to run away to a new continent. I had to do so much to be able to sell that it was important all the way back then to go by water to find a new way to Asia, and secretly to my inner circle to find a new continent that I found as Leif Erikson. Okay? There was a lot of thinking behind everything. There was a lot of thinking. Okay, guys? So I did create national security as Leonardo da Vinci and Machiavelli and so forth. Okay, I did create modern nation state as Leonardo da Vinci. I was Raphael, Michelangelo, Donatello. I had variated aliases. I was the governor of all of Italy back then. I hid it. I did a lot of work. as Leonardo da Vinci, I created modern nation state. I walked into all of Western Europe for the most part, or Southwestern Europe and Central Europe, and we created modern nation states, nation kingdoms back then, in a few of them. Okay, so we've done a lot of work, myself and my team that usually shows up. And I'm not speaking of my aliases. I'm not speaking about my various aliases when I say we. Okay, but anyway. But anyway, okay, so I've spoken on a lot of issues, top secret issues, declassified temporarily. These video recordings are going to be taken offline by the end of 2024 when everyone is in belief that I am who I say I am, and that they can trust in pacifism and globalism, eventual pacifism, complete pacifism, and globalism immediately, and so forth, okay? So today I'm going to author a paper, a work paper, on the 8th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. I'm going to have it published. I'm going to publish it myself. I'm going to publish it on script.com. I'm going to have it posted on my LinkedIn account. I'm going to have it published on my blog, ShawnDexterJohn.wordpress.com. I'm going to have it stored and documented on my Facebook account and my Twitter account and my Instagram account in JPG files, images, and so forth. Okay? So that's what I'm going to do today. That's what I'm going to do today. So I'm going to try to get in contact with my dad, my earthly dad, Crispin Clay John. He should be here in Orlando, Florida. He's been going back and forth to Canada, but he's back here in Florida for good. I'm going to get in contact with him and the rest of my custom family, the folks that I grew up with, and hopefully things work out, progressively over the next few weeks or so. Even though the world will seem to be a bit more chaotic, but I need to be as comfortable as possible to be able to do what I need to do to get the world through what it needs to get through over the next 2 years and thereafter. I have to be quite comfortable. I cannot be in this sort of situation having to audit and do all of what I've had to do. Globe tracking under anxiety, not anxiety, but people anticipating too much or anticipating too little, and showing up at times with people just not anticipating anything. I've done a lot of traveling all over the world by means that I cannot explain, within the next minute or so. But I've alluded to, I've communicated this in some sort of way to you guys earlier. Not even consistently, but from time to time. But anyway, so I'm going to write this work paper today. I'm going to publish it, and it's going to be about it's going to be about 2 to 3 pages. And it's going to be in the 8th Amendment. And essentially what I'm doing, I'm writing legal and political tenets on the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution. But I'm going to copy what I've written, the commentary, the early form of the work paper, the early work paper form that I have published on my blog site right now. I'm going to have it attached within that document. So under the enumerated legal and political tenets of the 8th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, I'm going to have the original commentary placed right underneath the enumeration, or the enumerated points. So it's going to be part of the same work paper. That was always the intent. Yeah. So when I said that, the original commentaries that I do have on my blog site are work papers, they are work papers. They weren't necessarily in enumerated form or legal and political tenets in enumerated forms, but they are work papers. I'm just doing what I promised myself I would do. I would eventually get to the point of making sure that everyone knows that I am a trained lawyer in this contemporary time also. I'm completely exceptional and lead when it comes to legal activism and legal philosophy and legal policies and jurisprudence in general. When it comes to writing law, that makes sense, when it comes to protecting human rights unbreachably in technical terms and stuff of that nature, no one is going to be able to keep up with me, obviously, naturally. Okay, so I don't want you guys contesting me too much anymore. That's enough. I need you guys complimenting me. I need you guys supplementing the work that I've provided to the world. Okay, it's still my copywritten work. I still own all of it, but I need you guys to take this seriously. Okay? You guys are not going to be able to do away with nation state. You guys are not going to be able to do away with the Caribbean community or ASEAN. You guys are not going to be able to do away with that. And yes, ASEAN means Shawn, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. I created it myself. I did so from heaven, okay, in anticipation of Barack Obama. I did so for him. I said, well, he's a Shawn. He's like me, okay? So this is how did you guys, it was computed. It was computed in my computer and so forth. It was a natural coded value. So I knew immediately that was the right decision to name it ASEAN. You know, so Barack Obama was born in the South Pacific as Don John. And then I had him wake up in heaven in 1989 to give him a new avatar. He went through hell. I sent in agents to put him into dream mode, and I had him wake up in heaven, and he entered back into this world as Barack Hussein Obama Jr., along with Michelle Obama. I did that. I made that decision, okay? So anyway, so yeah, he was born in the South Pacific, but he grew up in the United States, and when he was rebirthed, he was a natural-born American, and therefore he became the first black president of the United States of America. As Abraham Lincoln, he was Frederick Douglass, and he knew that I was 3% black or a quadroon or something. When they first met me, I had puffy lips. I looked as if I was at least a quadroon or just less than a quadroon, at least 3% black. They could see it in me. When I got my new avatar, just to not offend the narrative, I said, well, Barack Frederick, he's going to be the first black president of the United States. That's Barack Obama. I'm just going to have to take away my puffy lips, grow tall and scrawny, and not look as, rounded as I did when I was a younger Abraham Lincoln. I altered my avatar. I went back to heaven and I became 6'5", 6'6". Before then, I was only barely 5'11", 6 foot tall. Okay? So what you guys see in the AI-generated image, that's not an AI-generated image. That was actually me. That's what I looked like as a young Abraham Lincoln. I sent that image to you guys and I had it posted on YouTube. I actually did that. Okay? So I was 3% black as Abraham Lincoln. I really was. And I never stopped being 3% black. I just altered my phenotype just so that I would not offend Barack Obama and so forth. 3% black isn't really black at all. So technically, it was never an issue, but just for security purpose and psychological purpose, I made sure to alter my phenotype. The famous Abraham Lincoln that you guys see with the thin lips and everything, it's hard to see what I looked like as a youngster until now, what I've demonstrated to you guys. I still look the same. I was very soft looking. I did not look as if I was ready to lead any war effort to free the slaves, but it did communicate why I was so infatuated with freeing African Americans as a kid when I was Abraham Lincoln. So even though I walked back into earth from heaven when I got my new avatar, I did grow up in Canada. I was born in Canada as Abraham Lincoln. My name might have been Abraham Lot or I think it was something of that nature. But yeah, I was born in Canada. I was raised in London, Ontario, and we moved to the United States. I lived in Ohio. I lived in Indiana. I lived in Illinois. All different places. I really did, And I went to university in New York, Columbia. I went to college in New York, and I went to whatever I went through, and then I walked back into Earth when it was time to get my new avatar in Western New York. Right outside the essentially damn near right on the river bay. So that's the reason. That's when my grandparents, when I was Abraham Lot, when I was young Abraham Lincoln, my grandparents, they were American. They emigrated from the United States of America. And my maternal grandmother, she was half black or a quarter black, a descendant of African American slaves. Okay, so that's why I looked that way. All right? And that has been the story of Canada from the very get-go. American immigrants immigrants from the United States who were forced to change their names and to report Eastern European background, okay, just to hide that secret. So, yeah. So Canada is still is Canada for the most part. There are millions of Americans moving to Canada on a decade by decade basis. It's going to be millions on an annual basis moving forward very soon. Canada is American for the most part. It's an American project, and it has always been that. The majority of Canadians are from America. Their parents and their grandparents are from the United States of America. There are a lot of West Indian immigrants now. There are African immigrants. There are going to be a lot of Hispanic immigrants moving forward. It's going to be America 2.0. Or, Brazil, it's going to be America 2.0. Brazil is going to be quite awesome when it comes to multiculturalism, multiracialism. In the future, and Australia is going to be the United States in the Asia Pacific, culturally speaking, or, design speaking. Okay? Design-wise. So, okay, guys, I'm going to have to shave right now. But yeah. All right, you have a nice day.